In this video, we'll be covering the basics of Motive's user interface for motion capture data editing. When you first open Motive, this is what you'll see. To get started, you can either open a project file or an individual take file. Project files can contain multiple takes and help you organize your capture sessions. Let's open our project now. Motive has several interface layouts. We'll be using the Edit layout. Let's switch to that now. On the left, you can see the project window. We can see all of our takes here. If we had multiple sessions, they would also show up here. We can also see the assets in our current take. Below the project window, the Properties panel shows us information about the currently selected take or asset. This can be useful to skim through any take notes and see if a take has been marked as best. You can also change skeleton settings here, but note that they are not transferred between takes and will need to be changed in each take individually. The Show Target Marker Lines and Show Tracking Error settings can be useful for troubleshooting particularly difficult data. In the center of our screen, we can see the Viewport. This is where we can view our data. It shows markers, skeletons, and cameras. You can change the controls to navigate around the viewport under the Edit Mouse Controls menu. I've selected the Maya profile, which will be more familiar if you're coming from most 3D animation software. Below the viewport, we have the timeline. At the bottom, we have playback controls, allowing us to play forwards and backwards, move forwards and backwards by a single frame, or skip to the beginning or end of the playback range. We can also see the time code, current playback range, looping controls, and playback speed controls. You can click the Editor button to hide the timeline. The timeline has 3 different view modes. You can switch between them by clicking on these 3 buttons. The first is the Standard Curves view. The second is the Stacked Channel view. This separates the curves by channel. The last is the Tracks view, which shows green bars for each track. To interact with the timeline, you can click on the bottom bar to move the time cursor, or click and drag in the timeline to select a region. Click in empty space to deselect a region. You can use the scroll bar on the right to scroll through the different tracks. To the right of the timeline, we have the Edit tools, which let us perform a number of operations on our data to clean it up. We'll be covering this in depth throughout this series. That's it for the basics of the Motive user interface. In the next video, we'll talk about gap filling.